Worried about mom or dad falling? The Symphony Medical Alert System from CVS Health helps make their home safer, even if you can't be there. Symphony works with voice activation or a care button they can opt to wear, along with smart sensors for coverage around the home. With 24/7 emergency response and an app to tie it all together, you can monitor your loved one's well-being for enhanced peace of mind. Terms and conditions apply. Learn more about Symphony at cvs.com/symphony or find it at your nearest CVS Health Hub.
If you love hosting over the holidays, swap out your old HVAC filter with a Filtrete air filter. It can help clear away particles from all your holiday cooking. Look for Filtrete air filters at a retailer near you. Let's clear the air.
I have been wanting a paddleboard for years, and I finally got one from Bluefin Sup, and let me tell you, I absolutely love it because I can stand on it and look down in the water and see the fish, see sharks and stingrays and turtles. It's absolutely amazing. I've taken it out dozens of times since I gotten it, and what I love about Bluefin is they offered a huge selection. I went with the Bluefin Cruise 12, but they've got bigger boards, smaller boards for juniors all the way up to season ocean tours. And what's cool is it's a family-run business based in the UK, but they ship nationwide. When I placed the order, it was here within a matter of days, like 4 or 5 days. It was at my front door. It all packs down into a backpack. I can store it inside my vehicle, inflate it in 5 or 6 minutes. Doesn't take that much time. And one of the coolest things about it is it's almost completely replaced my kayak because a kayak seat is attachable to it. So when I need to take a break and want to sit down on the board, I have a seat ready to go. It's amazing. So if you're looking for a paddleboard, I can't recommend Bluefin enough. And by the way, they are having a Black Friday sale for $150 off at bluefinsupboards.com. That's Bluefin, S-U-P, boards.com. And there is a link in the show notes to check it out. So thank you for the folks over at Bluefin for sponsoring this episode.
And I just have kind of come to the realization that, like, if I'm ever going to get to experience all these things, I need to create a framework, in terms of how I approach my life.
Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason Gravely. Today we're talking to Mike Chambers from Beat Monday. He has been a long requested guest. I remember somebody asking about getting Mike on the show like a few years ago, and so I'm sorry it took this long, but just saw the opportunity, was able to connect with Mike and said, hey, we've got to get you on the show because what Mike does, it's so cool. He and his adventure partner, Jason, fit amazing adventures into true weekends, and a true weekend being literally after 5 p.m. on Friday all the way until 9 a.m. on Monday morning. They can fit in some incredible stuff in those, 64 hours. Literally international trips, climbing bucket list mountains like Mount Rainier, Mount Whitney, like I said, going international, climbing some of the biggest mountains in South America, all in a weekend where they can literally close the laptop, end a call at 5 p.m. on Friday, get all the travel done, all the driving, whatever it takes, do the adventure, and get back home for meetings on Monday. Now, Monday's not going to be pretty because they're going to be pretty tired, but think of the answer you have when someone says, hey, what'd you do this weekend? So Mike's show, Mike and Jason have a show called Beat Monday on Outside TV. It's free online. You can check it out. You can look it up on YouTube as well. But they've got about 12 episodes, another season coming out. And watch them all, learn from it, and really start thinking about what you can do in a true weekend. It's pretty amazing. And also, right at the end, Mike talks about rapid fire questions. This episode, just so you know, is from my other show, Without Compromise. And Mike answers about 5 or 6 rapid fire questions over on that episode. So if you want to hear those answers, we end right before we jump into those rapid fire questions. So go over onto Without Compromise to hear those. Again, that podcast is called Without Compromise. It's brought to you by Athletic Brewing, who I work for. Yeah, I hope this inspires you to beat whatever your Monday is. All right, let's jump in. I want to go back kind of where you grew up and what you were doing. Were you always kind of an adventurous person? Where did this start for you?
Yeah, thanks, Mason. Well, first off, thanks so much for having me. I think my folks were pretty adventurous people for the most part, not to the extreme that I think I've taken it, but grew up in New England. My dad was worked in the fishing industry. My mom was a dentist, and we spent our summers out on the water or on the beach surfing, and our winters up in New Hampshire, Vermont, skiing as much as possible. My folks actually met in the 70s in Snake River, Idaho on a ski trip. So they sort of kind of had the adventure bug and passed that on to us. Although, by the time they had kids, their desire to push the boundaries, I think, was certainly subsiding. I think I've always just, really loved the outdoors and loved adventure as a tool for discovering, what I'm capable of and learning more about myself and meeting really interesting people. It wasn't really until after I graduated from college that I started to more seriously sort of pursue it as an everyday part of my life.
And I know that came about because of a chance encounter with Jason. Do you mind telling the story of where you guys started seeing the potential to fit in a pretty massive adventure in a pretty short amount of time?
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, a lot of people don't know this, but Jason and I went to college together. He was a senior when I was a freshman. And I had kind of an interesting, experience going into college. In high school, I was a football player and lacrosse player and went to college to play both sports, but had a pretty serious neck injury that prevented me from playing any contact sports. So I kind of went into college a little listless. Like, I had sports as sort of that anchor for me for a long time. But naturally just sort of found my home with the football team, and Jason was the captain of the football team. And we hung out a little bit in school, but it really was after school, after college, that our friendship and partnership in the outdoors really started to blossom. Jason had been doing a lot of climbing. I had been doing a lot of ultra running and mountaineering. And we kind of started linking up for adventures together. And that sort of kicked everything off. We were fortunate to do a lot of really fun things together in the time that we were both living on the East Coast. But Jason moved out to Colorado, shortly after, and life took on its own sort of journey for me. My wife and I were starting an organization out in Kenya. I was sort of pursuing some, mountaineering objectives. And it was like around 2015, 2016, where Jason and I kind of checked in with one another. I mean, we'd obviously seen each other, throughout over the years, but we checked in and we were like, how's it going? How are you doing? We're both working full-time jobs. We're both, settling into relationships and, just like checked in with each other to see, how we were feeling about just life and whether or not we were accomplishing the goals that, we had set out as sort of adventurers and climbers and runners. And I think we both kind of left that conversation feeling like we were sort of falling into this trap of allowing time to be an excuse for why we weren't, pursuing our passions. At the time, I was launching an organization down in Haiti. I was, back and forth on an airplane for several years. Jason was working for a tech startup, and we were not living our most adventurous lives, and honestly, like, really for no reason. I mean, obviously we had busy schedules, but I think we were just allowing ourselves to get a little bit complacent. So we said on that phone call, and this is like, this is kind of how it all happened. We were like, all right, let's pick a date for a couple weeks out. We're going to go climb and ski Rainier in a day. Me coming from Boston, Jason coming from Denver. And we scheduled the trip. And we were like, all right, like true weekend, because I have meetings on Monday, meetings on Friday. Like we really have to do this in a true weekend. So we flew out and we had perfect weather on Rainier. It was both of our first times on that mountain, and climbed and skied the entire Emmons Glacier, almost all the way down to the trailhead. And it was just one of those adventures where just everything clicks, but it just felt so kind of real and raw. And like, we had no idea what was going to happen going into it. We knew that there was a high chance of failure, but and the added time component of like having to make it happen in this, confined time period was really fun and really compelling. And we left that trip like, we got to do more of these. And so that really sort of kickstarted the whole Beat Monday project. We did another one down in Mexico shortly afterwards on Orizaba, and then was able to get some sponsorship for the series and partner up with Outside, and that's kind of how it all started.
You mentioned time constraint being almost this added fun element to it. We talk to so many people who do adventures that take months or even years sometimes, or, at least weeks. And we feel like I can totally relate that. It's like, well, I don't have that right now, and I don't know when I will. What did it show you? What was possible with that Mount Rainier trip? And by the way, how did it go? Was it successful?
We had an incredible trip. We summited and skied. We had like perfect skiing conditions all the way down. We couldn't have asked for better weather. I mean, it was an incredibly memorable trip. I think for, what I did, at the time, I think Jason probably the same, was we really just like took a step back and analyzed our calendars and analyzed like how we were spending our time. And I think it's really valuable for everyone to do that at some point in their life, or at least periodically, to just like, we all feel busy all the time. There's a million things pulling us in different directions. But when you really take a step back and like look at how you're spending your time, there's all sorts of ways in which you can be more efficient with it. Obviously, beating Monday is not something you want to do all the time. It's exhausting and hard. And the time element's fun, but it's also sometimes fun to just go with no time element and just go have fun. But I think for me, it was really being honest with myself when I looked at how I was spending my time over the weekends. I'd be, waking up maybe a little later and sort of moseying around, and kind of next thing you know, I'd maybe go for a run towards the end of the day on Saturday, then like kind of go out. And then Sunday, I'm just like, maybe mentally preparing myself for the week. I think rest is important, and it's important to allow yourself to have those weekends where you just relax. But in general, like, I think we could all just be a little more, if we were all a little more structured with our time, I think we would all move towards our goals a lot more smoothly. And I think that was kind of the insight that Jason and I gained from that, and from this whole Beat Monday project. And I think for both Jason and I, it's really bled over into all aspects of our life. So, we still go and do trips that are, a couple weeks long, or, from time to time, obviously less, more and more so now that, our families are growing. But in general, like, I think I've really taken this concept of like balance to the extreme in all aspects of my life. Like, I really try and show up for like, the top 3 or 4 things that are most meaningful to me, on the course of a week, and really make an honest effort with myself to do the best I can. And for me, that's, my family first, my career, and my passions. And my passions happen to be, pushing myself in the outdoors. And so I really, really make a concerted effort to really just try and be as disciplined as possible, and make sure that I'm paying attention to all those things.
I can imagine coming in Monday morning, having done some of those things, you feel quite a bit of pride, or quite a bit of a sense of accomplishment, versus, maybe just kind of letting go of the weekend and not doing a whole lot. What were some of the biggest ways you were maybe either wasting time, or not wasting time, or just thinking differently, that you noticed in your own life, or that you notice in others?
Yeah. Well, first off, I will say that Monday mornings are really hard after Monday.
I was going to say,
we're not necessarily the most effective at work on Mondays, but that after that first trip, I had a meeting with the executive director of this big organization that we were partnering with, and it was at 9:30, and I landed in Logan Airport at 8, and I had to basically just get ready in the airport, and I smelled horrible. It was like I was so disheveled. I took a red eye back from Seattle. And I got into the meeting, and like, instead of trying to pretend like, I could like pull it off, I was just like brutally transparent with him and told him what I did that weekend. And he loved it. I thought, in some cases, like, you kind of worry about, that your personal life bleeding into professional life and how that might potentially negatively affect it. But in this case in particular, he thought it was the coolest thing ever. But, to answer your question about, I think we all like have the tendency to like over glorify how busy we truly are. I think once you start to tell yourself that narrative that you're so busy, like you become like, you kind of manifest your reality. Like you feel like you're busy all the time, but like when you truly take a step back and look at how you're spending your time, you realize that like, wow, like maybe you could be a little more efficient in like 4 different areas of your life. And that, if you did that, would free up so much more time to, be able to pursue keep, some of your passions a part of your life. I mean, I think for Jason and I, like, we love climbing and we love the outdoors and we love pushing ourselves, but really the message that we hope to get across with Beat Monday really extends beyond just, the adventure realm. I don't care if your passions are playing instruments or podcasting or whatever it is, it's really important that, you're doing everything you can in your life to make sure that you're prioritizing that. Doesn't mean that it has to be your whole life. You don't have to completely take it to the extreme like Jason and I have done with Beat Monday, but you will be a much more well-rounded person and a much happier person if you're truly sort of nourishing that part of your soul. And that's really the message that we hope to bring across with Beat Monday.
Going back to Beat Monday and the actual adventures you've done, I know that it isn't, so much goes into planning these weekends and making sure it fits within this 64-hour time frame. You've done, bike rafting, you've done climbing, you've done mountaineering, you've run with donkeys, you've done backpacking, you've done so much. Has there been any trip that's really stuck out to you or something that was extra special? And I will say this too, you're not necessarily an expert in a lot of these sports. You are learning these skills literally hours or minutes before you go and do them.
Yeah, in some cases that's the case. That's the truth. I think like Jason and I really pride ourselves on like maintaining a decent level of fitness to be able to kind of off the couch a lot of these things. But it's worth mentioning, like, we suffer hard on these missions. I mean, because there's such a variety of sports and things we're doing, it's really hard to train specifically for any individual one. So they all end up being a lot harder. And then of course, what I don't think comes across on camera is, the actual filming takes a lot of time. So we may have a run that would take Jason and I 10 hours under normal circumstances, but you have at least 20 to 30% of added time for filming, to the weekend, which means that time really just eats into our sleep ultimately. So we end up really sleep deprived on a lot of these trips. The best adventure or the best Beat Monday adventure, I think we kind of boiled this down a little bit to a science, Jason and I think it needs to be something new and something interesting for Jason and I. I think we don't really want to kind of go do the same thing over and over again. There has to be an element of unknown and a chance of failure. I think those two things are really important. It's not an adventure if you can go and nail it. You need to have some sort of chance of things going haywire. And I actually think it's a lot more interesting when things go wrong than when Jason and I just go and, cruise through a mission. So what's interesting is I actually think the best mission that we've ever done is probably one that hasn't aired yet. We just did it a couple weeks ago. There was some failure, some success, lots of adventure, lots of unknown, some epicness, and also like some good storytelling. Like, I think one of the things that Jason and I are really excited about as we kind of continue to evolve the concept is like bringing other folks in and helping tell some of their stories. In this case, we were down in Mexico and we were the first, folks from outside of this community to go run this new trail that was just built around Orizaba. There's this incredible couple down in Mexico who has spent the last 10 years creating this trail that circumnavigates Mexico's highest mountain with the goal of increasing tourism down there. And we were able to pull it off, despite some really unwelcoming circumstances. But I really loved learning about sort of this other person's story and having this added element to it. That's not the first time we were in Mexico. We actually went down and biked from Veracruz to the summit of Orizaba back in 2017. And I will say, we didn't film that one, unfortunately, but that was definitely the most memorable adventure that Jason and I have been on, as a pair, in the Beat Monday context. Like it had just all the elements of what we think makes an adventure great.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible.
Shop on eBay this holiday season to get more for your dough on stand mixers, or get more for your buck on this season's hottest tech and gaming gear. And on eBay, you can even get more Ooh. Bling for less cha-ching on jewelry. You can get more because you save more on premium brands with eBay's exclusive deals. Get more when you get it on eBay.
If your loved one is at risk of a fall, the Symphony Medical Alert System from CVS Health can help support their safety in their home with 24/7 emergency monitoring, even when you can't be there. Terms and conditions apply. Learn more about Symphony at cvs.com/symphony or find it at your nearest CVS Health Hub.
That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode. I was going to ask, what was so special about that made it stick out to you? Doing something that you've done in other places too, but making it the best.
I think what made it the best was we went down there with a very loosely defined plan. So I found we had an idea. We wanted to bike from sea level to the base of Orizaba and then climb Orizaba in a weekend. And we had no idea what the roads were like or what the conditions were like, whether it was safe. I managed to find someone on Facebook who could help, manage some logistics for us, help us determine a route. And that was the extent of our plan. We flew down there with our bikes. We assembled our bikes at the hotel that first night and started, right from there. And we had all sorts of things go wrong, from massive mechanical issues to some weird run-ins with, some folks. At one point we were on the side of a road somewhere, and we had a bunch of guys on motorbikes come up to us, and it was very, very nerve-wracking. We had, just a lot, I took a massive spill into a tree that really could have ended badly, but we managed to pull it off. We created big scenes in supermarkets and just nonstop laughter. We pushed ourselves. The bike ride was so hard. It was 130 miles with 16,000 feet of climbing. It was a really, all the way up to Piedra Grande, which is, over 14,000 feet. Just kind of had all those elements. And then we were able to summit the next morning, and it was just the perfect cap to, a really, really fun adventure. And I think the more elements of unknown, the more you open the door for real adventure to kind of come in, the better it is. And also, I love the fact I really like getting creative with some of these things. It's fun to go climb a mountain or, climb an established route or, run a trail. But when you can start to link together sports and different objectives and get creative with the way in which you're doing these adventures, I think that's where the real magic lives. And that's how to ensure yourself, a true adventure.
Gosh, that does sound awesome. Well, tell us a story, a quick story about maybe something you failed successfully. It wasn't, necessarily something that went right, but it's something you look back on. Maybe you made a good story, or it's something you cherish now, because that's what real adventure is really all the failures along the way. Do you have anything that sticks out?
Yeah, I mean, I have one thing I can think of at least, but it wasn't a Beat Monday adventure, but it was a mission that Jason and I did, or an adventure that we did to Greenland back in 2016. We had Jason had his daughter Avery, and my wife was pregnant with my son Max, our first, and we wanted to go do this one kind of last trip together, before my son was born. And so we went over to Greenland, and the primary goal was to set the FKT on the Arctic Circle Trail, which is a trail that it traverses the sort of western part of Greenland from the glacier all the way to the coast. And we were doing this sort of at the end of winter. It was in March. So we successfully, set the FKT on that trail. And then after that, the second mission was to go and ski some unexplored lines kind of in the middle of nowhere outside of this village called Sissemuit. So we got all of our gear together. We took a souped up Toyota Helix on snow tracks over like 2 mountain ranges, 50 miles from Sissemuit, and got dropped off at this like, old fisherman's hut in the middle of nowhere at the base of these mountains. And we had all the supplies we needed for 2 weeks. And, I was like, I think both Jason and I, and we had a film crew with us, like we were all like frothing, we were like, surrounded by all these unexplored mountains and unskied lines. And just, we were just so excited. And we got dropped off late in the afternoon and we couldn't help ourselves but to go and try and ski a line. So we put our skis on, started skinning up this mountain, and, the conditions weren't great. It was pretty icy. The snow conditions were really bad actually. And, it was cold. We sort of knew what we were doing wrong as we were going up, but just kind of did it anyway because, we were just so excited.
Yeah. I mean, when are you going to be back,
Yeah, exactly. It was just like we needed to squeeze every moment of the trip, and we had a little bit of daylight left, so let's go get it. And there was this one clear moment where, I think Jason and Andy, they kind of stopped and they were like, yeah, this is kind of not worth it. Like, should we turn around? And like, without even thinking, I mean, the voice in the back of my head was like, yes, you should turn around. But like, without even thinking, I was like, no way. Like, let's get up to the top and see this thing. Like, let's go. So I charged the group up to the top, and we finally just below the top, we finally decided to rip our skins off and ski down. And, on the third turn, I slipped out, my skis popped off, and I began careening down this mountain right towards this rock band with, a really steep, 60-degree section on the other side of the rock band. As soon as I fell, I dislocated my shoulder. I tried to put my whippet in, my shoulder popped out. As soon as I managed to use my leg on a rock right before that drop off to stop myself, I broke my leg in the process. And, I was bleeding and I was a complete mess, and it was real. It got really real in that moment, like, in the middle of nowhere, Greenland in winter, 50 miles from the nearest village, high up on this, really icy mountain. It was like one of those moments where I was like, wow, I'm in really big trouble right now. And, I was fortunate to obviously have Jason with me, who's incredible. He's an incredible mountain partner, and the rest of the team. And over the next sort of 6.5 to, I don't know, it's like 6 to 8 hours, we managed to get me down. And I was basically sliding on my butt with, my whippet, my shoulder was dislocated the whole time. So using my whippet, just inching myself down the mountain with my broken leg. I mean, I was a complete mess. I, didn't want to take any pain meds because I was just worried, that if I wasn't lucid enough, I might make a bad move and fall. Ended up taking some pain meds lower in the mountain, which really, really helped me. Managed to get back down to the hut, get my shoulder back in. Jason, we used this sort of Nalgene hanging from the wrist technique to just slowly sort of loosen up the muscles. Cause I mean, it was like, minus 30 degrees out. So everything was so tight from having been, in the cold for that long. Managed to get the shoulder back in, which was really, really agonizing. And somehow managed to get a rescue out from the same guy who dropped us off, from the same Greenlander who looked like the mountain from Game of Thrones. He came out and, pulled up in his Toyota Helix again for the second time that day, after driving over these 2 mountain ranges and frozen fjords. And the first thing he did was, he took out this bag that had all these syringes in it. And then he put some morphine in one of the syringes, and he stabbed me right in the shoulder, and he just kind of giggled and he said, "I've always wanted to do that." And next thing I know, I was in this like little hospital in our little clinic in Sissemuit. I think for me, the biggest lesson from that is obviously, I'm not a professional, while I've done this sort of semi-professionally, like I'm not a professional mountain athlete. I have, a great ability to kind of jump in and out of these worlds where I'm like, trying to compete at a high level in the mountains and then, or like, do things at a high level in the mountains and then like, pursuing my career as well. And then also my family. And I think for me, that was a really defining moment, especially set to the backdrop of the fact that I was about to be a father. I just needed to be a little more realistic with my own expectations of myself and with my own like understanding of my ability and like, and while I have these aspirations to always be better in all these different environments, like I think I just kind of, it was a moment for me where I was like, all right, like it's not just about me anymore. Like I really need to start playing it safe. And I really think that moment just sort of redefined, the way in which I assess risk and like the formula that now I approach to making decisions. And I'm kind of unwavering in that now. And and the formula has gotten more and more strict the more kids I've had. Like, my risk tolerance has certainly diminished quite substantially. But, I think that in hindsight gave me, it was a really good lesson for me in like helping me establish, a set of tools to analyze a situation to determine whether or not it's worth it. And, that's kind of stuck with me ever since.
So much I want to mention there, but holy cow, I did not expect a story that intense, man. It was
hardcore.
That was real.
It was really hardcore.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, you mentioned that risk assessment, man. I can't tell you, like there's things unimaginable to me that I'm like, there's no way I'm never going to stop doing this. A couple kids in, it's like, I have zero desire to do that ever again. Like it's not even, I don't even want to. You know what I mean? It's not like it's like not a loss even to me. It's nope, I'm good. Never saw that coming.
It's so true, man. I came into this whole parenthood journey thinking to myself, like, that I'm kind of immune to this is who I am. And like, this is what I love. This is what makes me come alive. So I can't imagine a world in which I'm not going to do that. I think, I want my kids to go and live their most alive lives, right? Like I want them to really pursue their passions. And if I'm not doing that, how am I going to, give them, how's that message going to come across? But I think, that really changed in that moment. And then in subsequent, experiences I had, but then now to the point where I still will do things that are considered very risky, but not without a substantial amount of preparation and like with like a real focus. And if at any moment along the way, it doesn't feel good, I'm out. I tried to set the speed record on Denali back in 2019, with my daughter on the way, my son here. And one of the things going into it was like, I need a partner for this because I'm not comfortable roping up going on rope through the lower glacier. And my partner had a pretty big fall just above Denali Pass, really, really close call. I think was probably his Greenland moment. He decided that he wasn't in for it anymore. And, for me, I was sort of set to the backdrop of 6 months of really intense training and hard focus on this objective. I kind of had set that rule for myself and going into it and that promise to my family. And as soon as, he made that decision, my decision was made. So, I didn't end up going for the speed record. We did get to go and summit and ski some fun stuff, but like, it's just a prime example of how like, my whole approach to this, risk assessment, risk tolerance has really evolved.
Yeah. So you're not setting speed records on Denali, but you still get to climb Denali. Like that's still there. That's still possible. So, and that's what I was so surprised to hear you say how much your risk tolerance has come down, yet you're still doing these incredibly badass things that any of us would be thrilled to do. So within those confinements, you can still find plenty of adventure, it sounds like.
There's so much to do. And then there's this like whole new dynamic with kids where you get to experience, like introduce them to it as well and have adventures with them. And like, that is, mostly fulfilling. Sometimes there's some pain associated with it, but like, that is a pretty fulfilling experience. Like when you see your kid, feel great about themselves, having climbed something or just, accomplishing something. It's really cool to share your passions with your kids. And so, while I've sort of definitely taken a step back, my ambitions to go, fast and hard or do anything, particularly dangerous have definitely subsided. But it's been replaced by something that, I find equally as fulfilling. And I'm also getting that thrill in other aspects of my life. Like I really, I think the whole career and as an entrepreneur is also giving me elements of that as well. So I think, I've been able to balance it out pretty well, all things considered.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And so, well, leading into that, there's obviously principles with Beat Monday that you can apply to any aspect of your life. What do you think the biggest lesson is, or one of them that you've learned and you've applied elsewhere? Because, and I also want to say, I can't imagine the whiplash of coming off a mountain and hours later being, changing a diaper, answering emails, and you just having to process all those.
I just want to be clear with anyone who's seen the series. We're not very productive when we come back from this. Sometimes it's okay, but honestly, sometimes we just go to sleep. So I don't want you guys to think that we're running into high level meetings after this all the time, because we try and keep our schedules on Mondays light when we come back from these missions. Yeah, I will say though, the week always feels a little better when you have an adventure in your back pocket like that. Let me think about that question. I ultimately, there's a lot of I'm a really curious person, and there's a lot of things I want to do with my time on Earth, and there's a lot of things I'm interested in. And I just have kind of come to the realization that if I'm ever going to get to experience all these things, I need to create a framework, in terms of how I approach my life. And if, I look at my calendar and I look at, what I do every day and what I eat every day and what I drink every day and all these things. And I just assess it, whether or not it's getting me closer to the things I want to do. And I think that's really, it's an ongoing journey. I don't have it figured out by any means. But I really try and check in with myself frequently to see sort of how the overall picture looks and whether or not I'm moving towards these, kind of clear goals that I've set for myself. And just think about do the best I can to, optimize, aspects of my life to just sort of facilitate that. Now, I will also say sometimes I like to just relax. It's not always just trying to perform at the highest level in all aspects of things. But I find it relaxing and enjoyable when I'm able to, when I'm able to do new things and experience new things. And so I think the formula to that is to just really try and be disciplined and structured, and just ask yourself the question, is what I'm doing in this moment getting me closer to my goals and getting me closer to the person I want to be? Another useful pointer I would say is you really should do your best to surround yourself with people who inspire you and people who you look up to. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes. I think we create friends when we're younger in life, and we sort of go on our own paths, and those paths are evolving, and you have to really think and be honest with yourself about your friendships and the people you surround yourself with, whether or not they're supporting you and your goals, and whether or not, they're healthy influences on you. So I think there's a lot of elements to it. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm trial and error constantly for me, looking to gain an edge in just the way I feel and the way I'm able to, accomplish, goals in various aspects of my life.
I'm so glad you mentioned framework early in that answer. That's all adventure is. That's all I ever say is, it's just framework for memories, for growth, for fulfillment. That's all it is. It's not really the adventure. It's the framework that it gives you the space for all those things to grow within it. And that's what I'm sure you've gotten a lot of feedback for with the Beat Monday series. What is one of the coolest Beat Monday trips that you've heard about through either a fan or one that you actually didn't do yourself, but someone else did because they were a fan of Beat Monday?
Well, I will say we're seeing a lot of folks go and do some of the missions that we've done as well, which is awesome.
Literally the same thing you did.
The same ones. Yeah. The same ones. Yeah. There are, there's this one guy who I'm sure your audience knows, Jason Hardrath.
Oh yeah. He's one of our ambassadors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jason's
King of FKTs, as he's known.
Jason's gone and done all of ours and set the FKT on them, which is really cool. And it's really cool to see him push the limits on things. And we've had, we've had folks reach out about everything from, I ran my first 5K this weekend, and like, the message in Beat Monday really resonated with me. I started this training program, and like, I ran my first 5K this weekend. And like, honestly, those are the types of things that I think resonate with Jason and I more than like the guy, like ultimately we're creating a TV show. So we're trying to push boundaries and like set up chances for, failure. But like, it's not all about the ground and pound, go crush yourself and, show up. That's not really what the message is. It's really just about whether it's in the outdoors or whether it's completely unrelated, just holding yourself to a standard and structuring your life in a way that like, that makes room for it. And so anyone who reaches out, whether or not they went to Iceland for the weekend and just had an adventure or, ran their first 5K, these are the types of experiences that we hear from folks that are really memorable.
I'm curious, do you find it challenging or a misconception with folks that watch Beat Monday or fans of you that you have to maintain this like adventurous persona all the time, or this, adrenaline junkie type person when maybe you're not always like that, or not like that very often at all?
I think personally speaking, I've always really tried to have like a balanced approach to life. Like I've never like completely identified as like a mountain person or a climber person solely, or as like an entrepreneur solely or whatever. It's just a funny concept that like we have to be all in on these one things and that we don't have curiosities that are driving us elsewhere. I am certainly in love with adventure and the experiences that it provides. And so that's definitely real. But like, the truth is like, I have so many interests that are completely outside of that would probably be kind of bizarre to hear for your audience, like for the audience. But like, I play cello. I have a startup, in the tech space. My wife and I have a charity in Kenya. Like, there's all these different things that I like to do. Adventure just happens to be the one that we have a TV show around. But I'm certainly, I really like to not sort of put myself into any one particular bucket as much as possible, because, that's just not really who I am.
Love that, Mike. That's so cool. Loved it. And what's cool, what I love about that too, my life's obviously not, I've got similar buckets where things are just so different. There's really no overlap in those Venn diagrams, which to me, I find so refreshing, because if I totally just bomb in one day or 1 week, the other bucket might have done amazing, and you can kind of lean on that. You know what I'm saying? Totally.
And it's just, the truth is like, I don't think as humans, like maybe some of us were put on this earth for one thing. Maybe like LeBron James was put on this earth for just being a basketball player. Although I think LeBron James would laugh in the face of that comment, because he's so much more than that. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has actually kind of bothered me about the adventure community and the climbing community a little bit over the years is just that like, it is very sort of incestuous, and like, and you're kind of like, you're either in and you're like, you adopt this persona and you're this person and you talk a certain way and you act a certain way and you do hardcore things, and like you give up all these other ambitions, or you're not. And that's always kind of bothered me, because like, I feel like, I know some folks who are really strong mountain athletes who are doctors and lawyers and who do, all sorts of incredible things outside of it, and haven't given up on their other passions and their other ambitions to commit to this lifestyle. That doesn't mean that they're not core, or they're not good, or that they're not, a part of the community. It just means that, they have other curiosities. And I think sometimes my challenge to the outdoor community would be like, we really sort of pride ourselves on being welcoming and sort of open armed when it comes to this stuff. But I think, we could all be a little more open-minded to what it actually means to be a part of the community. You don't have to be necessarily the most hardcore. You don't have to be solely committed to being a climber in order to be accepted in the climbing community. I think that is where I think we have a little room for growth as a community.
Couldn't agree more. Sometimes it's just so refreshing to unplug from that community and jumped solely into another one. Well, I tell you what, I'd love to ask one more Beat Monday question, then jump into a little rapid fire, where we can hear a little bit more about those curiosities. Tell us maybe one bucket list trip for Beat Monday, something that you think would be really amazing that might be pushing the limits of what's possible in a weekend. And also, what is the future of Beat Monday? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, great questions. All right. So I would say the bucket list one is one that we've attempted, but we haven't completed successfully, and only because of the weather. But we would really like to climb and ski Cotopaxi from Colorado in a true weekend. A couple of years ago, we went down there, and if the weather was good, we were going to nail it. Everything worked out, but we got crushed by weather, and we actually didn't even leave the high hut. We left the mountain and went to the hot springs. That mountain is like, what your kids would draw if you asked them to draw the perfect mountain.
It's beautiful.
It is just so beautiful. And Ecuador is such a cool country. And the thought that you could go somewhere so far and do something so big in such a short period of time is really fun. I think, every once in a while, not every weekend. So that would probably be the big one that is still sort of, bothering me a little bit, and one that I'm hoping we can do at some point. In terms of the future of the series, we're at a really interesting point right now. I think our goal for the series moving forward is to really bring other folks into the mix with us. I think we really love going on adventures together and pushing ourselves, but not as much as we love helping other people realize their goals and helping other folks sort of achieve their goals in the outdoors as well. So I think the future of Beat Monday will have a lot of special guests and different types of experiences combined with, some big epic adventures, maybe like the outdoor one or some other ones as well. And we'll be doing another season next year as well. So that's coming up. And then we also have a bunch of new other things that we're going to be launching, in the new year. We have a newsletter that will be releasing on a weekly basis, as well as there's talks about a podcast as well. But really, the goal is, my hope with the Beat Monday series is to really start to expand it beyond just the adventure audience and really start to speak to all folks who have a desire to, create a framework for their life that allows, all of their passions to thrive. And that's really sort of my hope for where we take the series beyond, and the concept beyond just, the adventures that Jason and I do.
That sounds awesome, because Beat Monday is a mindset more than it is those adventures. And we're all in a boat to beat Monday, whether it really doesn't matter what it is you do. We all have a weekend, or most of us have a weekend, or most of us at least have, our Monday might be a Wednesday, or it might be,
totally
the morning, the day shift. But we all have that Monday to beat. So that's actually really cool. And I think those principles just apply across the board. That's exciting. I'm excited to hear more about that. But man, I don't mean to keep you. Can we jump into rapid fire?
Yeah, let's do it for sure.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to growing the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
For the ones who get going when the going gets tough, and the ones who know we're tougher together. For the Pathfinders breaking new ground, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as fast access to experts and 24/7 customer support. Because we know you have people depending on you, so you can always depend on us. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you love hosting over the holidays, swap out your old HVAC filter with a Filtrete air filter. It can help clear away particles from all your holiday cooking. Look for Filtrete air filters at a retailer near you. Let's clear the air.